Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to the debrief with your friends here at Sandals Church, where we are getting real answers to tough questions. I am Stephanie Schaefer, and I'm here with our fearless leader, the PMB, Pastor Matt Brown.
You have a new nickname, the Captain.
The Captain? I'll take it.
Yep, the Captain of this ship.
I like it.
Wow.
Love it.
Well, thanks, guys.
You're the Captain
Well,
now.
here on the debrief, we are getting real with the Enneagram, and this week we are talking all about the 4.
Yes.
So we have 2 wonderful guests with us here today, our resident 4s. Well, some of our resident 4s.
They're going to let the
We've got
4 roar.
Elena and
Oh, yeah.
Andrew. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
We're going to 4 out. My name is Elena, and I'm a 4. I'm a marketing lead here at Sandals Church.
My name is Andrew, and I'm the lead designer here at Sandals
Yeah,
Church.
both of you have been on the debrief before.
that's true.
Returning
Yes.
guests.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Yes.
Mine was a happy accident, but we won't go into that.
It was a very happy accident. We had fun on the episode. So, but yeah, and Andrew and Elena are basically responsible for making all the things that look, sound, and feel awesome here at Sandals Church. So we really enjoy them, and they're going to get to talk to us all about.
Are you both 4-wing 3s?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a 3-wing 4.
Okay.
So I can't quite grapple with your emotion, but I can get close.
Yeah, I think my 4 is a 3. So
Oh, we'll
here's
give
what
some
I
of ours to
put
you.
down.
Oh, here,
Yeah.
please
I'll borrow
take
some.
some.
I'm married to a 4, which is great. So I think my 4 has grown from a 1 to a 3 while being married to him. But yeah, I love and appreciate the 4s.
I think 9s and 4s do very well together. They complement each other well.
We do most of the time.
Is your
Or-
husband a 9?
Yes, he's a 9 with a really high 8, though.
Yeah. 9-wing 8. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, all right, we are going to be talking all about the 4. So, Pastor Matt, can you just kind of give us an overview? Like, what are the things we need to know about the 4 as we start the conversation?
Yeah, so I intentionally, I don't know if you guys caught this, I intentionally avoided the word creative this week because I think a lot of people who are 4s may not be artistic, and so they think that can't be me because I don't creatively express myself. And so we chose the word individualist, and so the core need of being unique and to be seen, and to be really in some way significant in life, and that's really the strive of that. Now that can be an artwork, it can be expressive in that way, but I just don't want people to automatically negate if they take the test and it says they're a 4, but they wouldn't consider themselves artistic. Now many 4s are artistic and are expressive in that way, but you can express your desire to be an individual and to be unique in many different ways. And so art is one of those main things. But really, it's a person who's deeply, deeply in touch with how they feel. They feel deeply. They're deeply aware of their feelings, which makes them very, very different from some of the other numbers. You know, for example, me, a 3, who is totally disconnected oftentimes and is the last person to be aware of how I feel. The 4 is the first. 4s sense their feelings, and here's why you want one in your small group. They can sense your feelings. So my daughter's a 4, and she's very, very aware of how people are feeling and what's happening in them before they are. She reads people well. She sees people well. Versus my son, who's a 5, and we've just said he needs to be with his sister quite often because he does not read people well. He does not have good radar when it comes to the emotional makeup of people. And so these people are just really, really helpful. They feel deeply. At their best, man, they're expressive, they're enthusiastic, they're just wonderful people to be around, deeply in touch with their emotions and your emotions, just great heart handlers, really can mimic in some ways the 2, but their motivation to care is feelings. So that they're not trying to meet a need other than they just deeply care about how you feel, whereas the 2 cares about how they feel. So I need to help you. So the 4's motivation is to help others, and that's the beauty of the 4. Now, when they become unhealthy, and so if your unhealthy 4 scores are really, really high, it can lead into depression, isolation, and really, really some ugly, ugly thoughts about you. And that, I don't want to get into it, but that toilet bowl can go way, 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 way down. And so if you have a 4, you really have to make sure that your negative feelings are not in the driver's seat, because they can get out of control and they can get really, really dark. So if you have a child that's a 4, you need to be aware of that. If they're in that emotional cave, you're going to have to go and help them pull themselves out. Because they might not fully express the depths of the darkness that they're feeling. So at their best, they're the most joyful, the most healthy heart handlers in the world. Just really, really see people the way God sees people, and just a unique gift to the world. And so that's, I believe, what they represent in God is just the uniqueness of who God is, and the 4 represents that. There's just no one quite like you. And so, which is interesting because the fours often feel they're not unique, which is that whole craziness is, it's like the pretty girl saying, oh, I'm so ugly. It's like, okay, let's all just move on.
We get it.
Yeah, we get it. We get it.
Okay.
Yeah, on the topic of unique.
I'm sorry about your modeling contract. Yes,
all feel
you're
really
hideous
bad
to
for
look
you.
at. Okay.
We actually got a really interesting question on that. So Annie Moss wrote in and said, my 4 score was a 2, my lowest score. Yet as I sat in service, I felt as though you were describing my every fault. I struggle with gift envy. I feel deeply. I cry in worship, and many times I don't know why. I feel average and like I have no gifts. I can get depressed easily, but uniqueness was never an option in my home. I had to learn to fit into the boxes my parents made for me. As I explore the notion that I may have more 4 in me than I realized, do you have any advice or resources?
Yeah. So one of the things that you have to learn, and I think this is helpful for moms, a lot of moms and wives will score super high on the 2. They're not 2s. They're adaptive 2s. So they're adapting to the environment around them. So moms have to be helpful, have to care about other needs, and often have to carry many, many loads that are not their own. But that doesn't mean that your core style is a 2. It means that you've adapted to that. So oftentimes 4s, when you take the test, you're not seeing yourself accurately. So the first thing I would do is look at your negative, unhealthy 1 score, because what that's going to do is indicate that you took the test not how you are, but how you think you should be. So that's the first thing that when you're reading your scores, look at the unhealthy 1 score. And if it's 90 and above, you may want to retake the test and just say, okay, I'm not going to take this and answer questions correctly. I'm going to answer truthfully. Those are very, very different things. The 1 wants to answer correctly, if you're unhealthy. If you're healthy, you're going to answer them truthfully. And that's what's really, really important. I would say clearly just by your question, you're 4. And what I would say is you are not allowed to be a 4 in your childhood, in your upbringing, and you've really not been seen, which is devastating to who you are because you have a deep, deep desire to be seen. And let me just say this, to be different. Didn't she say that I'm assuming it's a she.
I think it's a girl.
I feel like
yes.
it's a she. Well, Annie
Yeah,
Moss.
okay. She said that, read the second half.
She feels deeply. She cries in worship. She had to learn to fit in the box that your parents made for her.
Yeah, okay, that's the key. If you feel like you're being made to fit in the box, that's your 4 screaming. Your 4 is screaming out. And let me just say, even if you're not a primary 4, the reason why I think Sandals Church does the Enneagram better than anybody else, that's my 3 talking, is because we're not just a number. But we look at it like your fingerprint. It's this unique fingerprint of all the styles, and all of us have all of the styles in us because we reflect God, who is reflected in all 9 styles, and that's who God is. And so, if you have a desire, she said, I've been shoved in a box. I cry in worship. Man, that's your 4 saying, I need to feel. And what I would say is, there's probably some unhealthy 1 in your life, and so you need to give yourself permission to feel. And I'm a guy. I grew up, not wanting to cry, not being in touch, and I've just learned to embrace when I feel like crying. It's good for me, and I allow it, and I feel so much better because my 3 keeps me divorced from my feelings. And so, I'm so focused on achieving and being successful, and it just really whacks me out. So I'll give you an example of how my 3-4 are in conflict. So I'm training for the Ironman. June 2nd, I'm doing the Ironman. Unfortunately, in Kona, in Hawaii. Has anybody seen what's happening?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. 1,000 earthquakes the last week. The island's cracking in half. Lava shooting
Lava
out
flow.
100 foot.
Yeah.
So the 3 in me is like, I've trained so hard. I'm going to miss out on my event. Right.
Meanwhile.
Homes are burning. Lives are being changed. Right. And so then my 4 comes along and says, what about the people? And the 3's like, shut up. We're gonna win.
Box.
Right? Yeah. And so, but my 4 comes out and says, okay, I really need to embrace that. And so I've really struggled feeling events, even like 9/11. I remember, okay, the towers are falling. Everybody get back to work. I mean, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
That's an unhealthy 3. So then the next couple of days, my 4 is crying, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is crazy. People's lives are destroyed. So that 4, let it out. Give yourself permission. And man, if people in your small group are uncomfortable with it, tell them to get over it. They need to feel. They need to feel deeply, and they need to connect with their heart. And again, if your 4 is like 5 and below, you've got to recruit 4s to your small group, and just know that they play a unique role in your group, and they remind you of the heart of God. This week we talked about Saul, who forgot the heart of God. I'm going to find a king who is after my heart, thus saith the Lord, right? That's the four. The four, when healthy, beats for the heart of God, and they care for the heart of God, and people matter to them in the way that they matter to God. And that's just right, the beauty of that four in the most positive nature. So let that out. Now, on the negative side, you have to be aware of how much time and power you're giving to your negative feelings, right? And our feelings can override our faith. And so that's why, the verse I gave you, Psalm 139, is so important for the four. I mean, if you're into tattoos, man, get that one on your body. I am beautiful in the eyes of God. His workmanship is amazing. Like, you need to remind yourself of that every day, because the four can be so self-critical and just dive into this death spiral of, I'm not unique, I'm not special, I don't matter. Because significance for them is key. So that's a great question. You guys have any thoughts on helping Annie Moss?
Yeah, I just think embrace that empathy. I think fours have such a beautiful high empathy, and it's an emotional intelligence. I mean, there's a time and a place for feelings, but I think we have this gift of emotional intelligence, and vulnerability, I think, is a strength. Like, I think to be vulnerable is a very, very beautiful, strong thing. So when you're around people that maybe are not being receptive to your feelings, or you're feeling like you're too much, I mean, there's a time and a place for it. But I think oftentimes it's that we're making someone else feel uncomfortable because they're actually not comfortable in their own feelings. And what a beautiful gift it is to be and to come alongside someone and be able to feel with them and go to those depths and go to those places. And it's also ironic because I think we're able, like you just said, to see the beauty in people when they're not able to see it themselves, but we're also not able to do that so often. So it's a bit ironic, but yeah.
And I think there's something about like feeling with someone else that it sounds like she's kind of in like she said, she's trapped in this box of like, these are my feelings and this is what I am. There's something about feeling with someone else that like almost gives you permission to feel.
Yeah.
To be like, here are my feelings. And they're like, I have feelings too. And I'm like, we're feeling together? Yes. Let's just like feel things.
Let's be here.
And it just allows you to like let go and be like, someone else is like me and like not more unique than me, but like just that initial, like they're like me and they understand me. And that allows me to just be a little more me.
Yeah. Let me say this about the four. Our daughter's a four, and she's so great at feeling for people. But I've really had to press into her. She will see the student that no one sees, but those students are usually dark, struggling with depression, and she'll so invest in them. I'm like, girl, you got to pull out. I mean, there's ministry and then there's friendship. And so as a four, you've got to be able, there's three relationships in life, right? There's professional, there's ministerial, and then there's personal. And so it's okay to do ministry as a four. You got to be careful that you're not surrounding yourself with just negative, depressed people because they will pull you right into that. And negativity loves company. So you've got to, so if you're a four, you're going to have some sevens. Like, right, you need some sevens in your life. They're like, let's go have a good time. Let's celebrate. The seven's going to stuff those feelings and just let's party till the break of dawn. And you need to have that healthy seven in your life that brings the joy of your feelings out, because that's important too. Because you can get locked into some real, darkness with your friends. And oftentimes, a friend group, if they're all fours, can get really, really negative and kind of fixate on that, especially in our culture where victimhood is so celebrated. Everybody's a victim. Everybody's been something bad has happened to everybody. And we kind of resonate in that. And that's just really dangerous for the four. There's not going to be any sevens in that group. They're like, woo, this party's...
I got to go.
I got to go. So make sure you have those, those sevens. And again, this is why it's, you need an 8 to confront oftentimes untruth in your life, because your feelings can blind you to the truth of who God is. So just like we need the 4 to speak the truth of God's heart into our life, the 4 needs the truth of God's word spoken into their life. I hear what you're saying and how you're feeling. Here's what God's saying and how he feels about you. He says you're this. And now you're confronted with, and I can't wait till we do the series 10 Reasons Everybody Needs God. But people don't understand how important the commandments are, the 10 commandments. And the first one, thou shalt have no other gods before me, and then thou shalt not fashion any idol. And so the four's idol is their feelings. And they worship that and they bow down to that. And God's saying, no, you must subject your feelings to me. That's worship for the 4. And the beauty of that is God loves you even in your darkness, even in the depths of your feelings. And King David has some real 4 moments in the Psalms.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's some pretty crazy feelings in there. Lord, you're awesome, you're amazing, but please help me kill my enemies and let me bash their children's head against these rocks. That would be wonderful. Like, right, you're like, whoa, what just happened?
Where did that come from?
You know, well, there's some 4 in there. So,
It's a lot of 4 there.
So Andrew and Elena, can you kind of talk about your experience of discovering that you're a 4, what that's been like for you, how you see that play out in your life?
Okay. I was making this joke with Andrew that we were just going to talk in metaphors for the entire episode. And I am going to start with a metaphor, but it's only because it's so hard to describe feelings. But when I first discovered my number, it was a sweet sadness. And there's also, 4s are also described as the romantic, which I love because just the true definition of romance is just like this expression of excitement and mystery associated with love. It's not necessarily strictly, related to love. And so I identified with that because my whole life, I feel like I've been writing this like mystery novel and creating all these characters, and there's been different adventures, different scenes, but no real underlining plot. And things have just been like, I don't really know what this is that I'm doing, but I'm creating something. I just don't know where it's going. And so when I learned my number, I was like, oh, that's what this book is called. That's what this thing is writing. That's what I am. That's this thing that I'm creating. It doesn't really complete the plot line, but I think it at least gives it a title. And it was kind of nice just to be like, I feel sad, but I feel like so much relief in that sadness. And not in a bad, sad way, just kind of in a good, sad way.
Yeah, in a good, sad way.
In a good, sad way.
Yeah, for me, when we were going into it, I was like doing research on like the different types, and I'm like, okay. And I took the test, and I remember it said that it had sent to someone else. And it's like, you'll get results in like however many days. And I'm like, no. I need to know right now.
Yeah.
And like, if I'm not a 4, I'm going to be absolutely crushed. And I literally walked over to her office and I was like, hi, you just got an email and I think that you need to tell me what that was. And she's like, oh yeah, you're like 104. And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. And it was like this thought of like,
you are an individual.
Yes. If that is not validated in me, then like my world is over and like I don't know what I've been doing with my whole life. And so I think that it's given me permission, and I think that it has provided a good opportunity for me to see things and investigate things that I wouldn't have pointed out in myself. Mm-hmm. Like having anything that's a resource that says, hey, maybe think about these other things that aren't your feelings, for me is so beneficial. And so having like a book or a podcast, it's like, hey, sometimes 4s need to be aware of this. And I'm like, what is that? I do need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Like I've been trapped in these feelings. And so it's been nice to understand myself better, but also have the freedom to kind of a little more freedom to explore that and be like, cool, that's like, I'm just going to be an individual. Like it gives me some sort of victory or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this question. I didn't prep you for this. You were a competitive athlete.
Yes.
So talk to me about that, because that's like, and you too, and that's literally like,
oh, that's
I
true.
didn't know that
that's like terrible for
What a
4s.
sweet person.
Because you're being evaluated based upon your performance, and you're being compared to others and ranked.
Oh yeah. It's kind of a nightmare.
Man, we're just going to... So I started playing sports because everyone made fun of me and I didn't fit in anywhere. And I was like, I'm really tall and I'll get good at basketball and then people will like me. And yeah, I went through, played basketball my whole life. My goal was like, I want to play college basketball. I got picked up by a college. I played a summer and was like, I don't like this anymore. I think I'm just done.
Yeah.
And just dropped out and I was just done with it. Like completely over. And I think a lot of it might have been that I'm like, cool. I like became the cool kid. And the reason I came in this was accomplished. And now that I'm in a new place, I'm like, well, I don't need this anymore. So I'm going to just move on to something else.
Yeah.
And decided to go
that's very 4.
Yeah, decided to go into musical theater from that. So it was a big switch.
Yeah.
True trajectory of a 4.
Yep.
Didn't they make a movie? Didn't Disney make a movie about that?
Oh, High School Musical?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's the
Oh,
one.
you mean High School Musical, the plot of my
Classic
life?
Zac Efron.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I got my head in the game.
You could do a video bouncing the ball.
Yes.
I just remember that because my girls were into Zac Efron.
Oh, 100%.
However you want to justify that. Is fine.
Yeah. I was just too hyper. I was just really, really hyper. And my parents were like, she needs to do something. So
we need Elena to be tired.
we need to tire this girl out. So I swam from 5 to 20. And I actually really struggled with just my identity crisis, because my whole life I never felt like an athlete. I never felt like a competitor. But then I could put on the proverbial like suit and say, oh, okay, this is who I am. And I'll just feel comfortable in that. But my whole life I felt like this isn't who I am. This isn't who I am. So my last year of college, finally I was like, I need to stop doing this and find the thing that, because I think fours, they gravitate to what's the thing.
Right.
Tell me what I am. Like, tell me these different things I can put on to be that thing when you're unhealthy. So finally, I was like, this isn't my thing. So it was a weird struggle.
And swimming is a crazy commitment, man.
Oh,
Like, I've
yeah,
been to that
it's
pool,
2
and you
days
guys
a
are in there at
day.
like 4 a.m, 5 a.m. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, I think there is a big aspect of it that is almost like, oh, I found the person that I can be, so I'm just going to be that person.
Yeah, I guess I'll just step into this.
Yeah.
Especially when you're an adolescent, you're like, oh, well.
Yeah, and like,
people
like the
accept me for
sports
this.
stereotypes. So you're like, cool, I can just play that for a while.
Yeah. But all the while feeling this kind of angst inside, like this isn't really describing what this thing is. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you guys have started to kind of unpack your style more, where would you say you've started to notice in your life the really healthy side of the 4 kick in and really shine?
You keep looking at me.
I know.
right?
I don't know why I keep looking at you.
I feel like I'll just keep going first.
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's two really beautiful ways now that we can embrace this and we have like this roadmap for, oh, this is who you are, but this is also what you could be. One of it is 4s have this really deep longing that something is missing, and they're always on that search for that thing. And we're always, I kind of like to say, we're always creating worlds that don't exist. So I think there's a really, really healthy side to that where beauty comes out of that. Like, I feel like I have this high empathy level, so I'm able to really anticipate the motivations, and that works really well for marketing because I'm able to really understand our audience and connect with them. And then on the other side, just in personal relationships, I'm not afraid to suffer. I'm not afraid to walk in a struggle and be with you in that. And because we have such a deep shame, sometimes that's beautiful. And sometimes when someone will come to me with something, they could say like they've done the worst thing in the world, and I will sit with them. I will cry with them. I just want to be a safe place for them to just feel and then get out of that together, because I'm like, I don't want that for you. I don't want to stay in that. I don't think melancholy is a place that you should ever stay, but I do feel like it's a beauty that I could sit in that with someone and really be there in that moment. And yeah, it's kind of that longing for there's something missing that I'm not afraid of that, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that as I've learned what my healthy 4 looks like, I think I have so much of my identity in what I do and like what I make. Just like being an artist, I'm like, what I make is like just a part of me, and that's like how I represent. And I think that as I've learned more and more about what it looks like to celebrate that individualist in a healthy way, I think that I've started to switch a perspective that a lot of my value is the way that I perceive and the way that I see, and not necessarily like what I do with it. So I think I've always landed with like, cool, the thing that I make is the thing. And as I learned, I'm like, no, it's the way that I see the world that is the thing. Like the product is the end product is just a product of the way that I'm viewing this thing. Right. And I think that starting to understand that better and celebrate that, I think has given me more capacity and more allowance to help other people feel other things. I think we see a lot of stuff now that makes us want to like feel good. I think especially like scrolling through Instagram, it's just like, oh, it makes you feel good. And I think that as I learn to explore that human emotion, I want to make people like feel good. Yeah. Like feel a broad gamut of human emotions. And I think 4s obviously are just full of emotions. And I think it's beautiful that we can almost paint with all of these colors, some of which that people just don't see, and say, I'm going to explore this broad gamut of human emotion. And I want you to feel this specific thing with me that you're probably never going to feel again in your life. Right. But we're going to do this together. And like, I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to go through it because I want you to feel this feeling. Like a pastry chef makes an amazing pastry. It's like, you have to taste this. It's the same thing that like, I want to cook up this thing. It's like, I want you to feel this with me for just a minute.
That's cool.
If you're a 4 or you're, you love somebody that's a 4, I think the thing that's been most helpful for me is just the concept of seasons. So when you look at the way that God designed the earth, right, there's summer, there's winter, there's spring, there's fall. And, I think a lot of us are afraid of winter, and that's kind of those dark, negative feelings. And so for me, like when I'm preaching, typically you guys are seeing a lot of the 7 influence in me, the energy of the 7, the joy of the 7, and the drive of the 3. But I can't be that way all the time. And so typically Mondays and Sunday afternoons for me are my 4. And I go into this darkness and I kind of go into this melancholy, this little depression. And I used to feel like that was sin. And I was like, no, it's winter so that there can be a spring and a summer. And so just know that, as a 4, part of that kind of pulling back and experiencing the darkness of winter is so that there can be a spring and there can be a summer. And you've got to learn those emotional seasons because you can become very, very fake as a 4 if you don't tap into that. Now, you can't stay in winter forever, right? No. You have to come out and you have to have people help pull you out of that because, it becomes darkness and things die in winter, right? Trees, there's no green life. Bears hibernate. I mean, things happen. And so, okay, that's a part of your life, but, and then you need to prepare for that winter and just know, okay, this is the way God's wired me. I'm going to work this way. And the other personality styles can fake it much better than the 4. The 4 will exhaust themselves if they can't pull back and have that winter time, especially if you're a 4-5. Man, what that means is alone time and time away, from people. And so if you're a 4-3, that's just kind of grieving the fact that you're not as successful as you think you should be.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think coming from someone who's married to a 4-5, actually like having to learn how to let the 4 in my life have those times of feelings. Because I'm okay, I notice that you're feeling that way, but you probably should wrap that up now. We've got things to do. You need to stop feeling that way or not stop feeling that way, but I want to help him. I want to help him feel better. But sometimes that means I need to let him go have his space, go have his feelings, process however he needs to process. He does a lot of that through poetry, which then makes me feel things that I didn't know I had feelings. Yeah. So, but learning to, as you love a 4, to let them have those times and let them feel the feelings and help be the barrier of I think it's time to come out of that.
Yeah.
It's time to move on.
And I think almost seeing that you're not just a bottomless pit of emotions, that it's like a well that there's different layers and the deeper you get, you're going to start getting different things coming out of this well. It's not just they're just feelings everywhere.
He's just going to be feelings forever.
Yeah.
Learning oh yeah, he does know how to work through that and work through those feelings. It won't be like this forever where I get scared because I just avoid emotions and things. I'm I'm going to be sad forever. If I let myself cry now, I will never stop. And it's no, it's okay. Cry for now. We'll work through it and we'll move on.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because for a lot of for unhealthy 4s and maybe 4s in general, they do struggle in relationships sometimes because there is this, oh, okay, that just happened. And so there really is don't abandon the 4s. We'll come around, but abandonment is a real issue for 4s, and it's the worst of all things that could happen. And so it's really beautiful when you can let that happen and not entertain that and see when this red flag has gone up, but not be afraid of that because. Yeah. They still love you. Everything's fine. We're sorry.
Yeah, preemptively and actively, perpetually sorry.
I'm sorry.
Everyone.
Yeah.
So on the other side now, let's talk some of how you've seen the unhealthy side of the 4 really kick in for you and what that's looked like, how you kind of went through that.
I get totally lost in my emotions to where I will be existing in a reality of feelings. No facts have any clout. This is the actual way that you should work out of the situation. Here are the real things that are happening. None of that matters. And I can be aware of it. I can be so self-aware that I'm okay, this is just feelings. And here's the actual reality of the situation. And I'm it doesn't matter. I'm feeling so hard that I can't take action past that. And then I just get trapped in the cycle of just feeling. Yeah. And even when I work past that, I'm okay, all right, I'm past the feelings. I understand what I need to do and how I can work through this, but the feelings again, and just, it becomes that perpetual. And that's become a super unhealthy thing for me because I experience those feelings so deeply and I understand and have a high kind of emotional intelligence of myself. I can manipulate myself into feeling those more intensely or less intensely, or other people around me manipulate them into feeling the same feeling, so that it becomes just this pile on of this just dump of feelings where I'm at the bottom, just embrace me and bury me in feelings, which becomes super unhealthy.
Oh, Yeah. I think the indicator that when I know I'm not being healthy is when I start to do a lot of what ifs. So I think fours really struggle. They're very dissatisfied with the present and terrified of the future. And so it's when I start to notice I'm doing a lot of what ifs, I'm talking about the past, like we were talking about swimming. What if I didn't swim? What if my parents put me in more riding? I would probably be a better rider. And that's when I know that I'm reaching this unhealthy space because I'm what if. And then I just go into this like apologetic mode where I'm just apologizing for my existence. And it's like, this is weird. Like, I need to go read the Bible, go pray, or go like scream a prayer in my car or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I realized that I was actually just thinking about this weekend that I just skip over a what if phase. Like, I don't even like, what if this is the thing? What if immediately it's like, well, this is the way it is.
Thing. Yeah.
This is it. And that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And like, this is the future forever.
Yeah.
There's no what if, like, what if this is true? No, it's true. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. How have you guys seen envy manifest itself? Sorry, did I steal your thunder?
No, that was exactly the next thing I was going to do.
I think when you're talking about someone else being equally or more creative, that it's not an envy of like, oh, I want to be more creative like them, that it's, I want to experience what they're experiencing. I am not envy of like position or whatever it is, or the clout. I'm like, what are they feeling? Like, how are they better than me? And how do I like feel those things that they are? How do I get into an emotional place to where they are that I'm somehow lacking? Yeah.
Okay, you.
Ooh. Yeah, I really struggled with the envy piece of it for a little bit, but then I had to take envy and jealousy. It's really important that we distinguish between the two because jealousy is this threat that someone is taking something that I have and doing it better, and envy is envious of a quality or a personality trait or a gifting. And so for me, how it plays out is, when I'm around someone that is seemingly, I'm like, oh, they have a thing that I should have that thing. It's like, it's not that I'm envious of them or the thing even, it's that it magnifies this hole in me and it magnifies the wholeness in them. And I just feel I can only see the vastness of what I don't have that they have. And so
I think the way that it works is envy, the sin of envy in the heart of the four is look at what they have and then look at what that says about what I don't have.
Yes.
And so my uniqueness is diminished. I'm not an individual. I'm not, you said romantic enough. I'm not, and so all of these negative feelings about self start to manifest themselves. And again, it calls God a liar. I am not an individual. I am not unique. I am not these things. God, what you've said is not true because of how I feel, because of look at them and what they have. And so, envy's, and envy can screw up friendships. It can screw up relationships. I mean, it can really, really do some really dark damage relationally. Especially, if you're a four, you have to really, really be careful of friendships because oftentimes the people that you're drawn to are very unique, very amazing people. And then what does that say about you? What does that say about where you are? What does that say about what you're experiencing? And then there can become this, even this thing that you're unaware of, this rivalry of, okay, what's happening to me? It can really do some damage. And so really getting to the place where you see the uniqueness in them and you acknowledge that and you celebrate that, and that hopefully that person can see the uniqueness in you and celebrate that. If that person's a 3 that you're looking up to, that might not happen because they can only see themselves. So that becomes, friendship choices for the 4s are really, really important. If you're really, really close with an 8 that has a hard time seeing feelings or seeing others, a powerful person, a 4 can get really lost in that relationship. And so you just really have to be careful with, the people that you identify with because they're amazing attributes of the 8. Wonderful things to be like, wow, I kind of wish I was that way because they're strong and determined. And so you just have to really, really watch your heart in who, you come up to. And you can even, here's how it can work like in marriage is, wow, this person's so amazing. Will they always love me? Will they always care about me? Because you see what they have and then it turns on yourself and it creates this gap of that's where they are. This is where I am. How are we going to maintain this? And so it can become it can become funky. And so, a lot of times with these core sins, you might initially go, no, I would encourage you to dig a little deeper, look a little deeper, and try to say, okay, Lord, I'm open to hearing how this sin is in my life. Because I don't really like the term liar. That doesn't like pump me up during the day. But I've had to look at myself, okay, how am I, being dishonest about my feelings, not truthful with others and things like that.
Yeah.
I feel like you were going to say something.
No.
No? Okay.
It wasn't.
Well, I'd actually
but-
love
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
I feel like you were going to say
I
something.
feel what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I
I'm
receive.
feeling what both of you are feeling.
Well, I'd love to hear just how that's played out in relationships for you guys. Maybe in like your most significant relationships, have you seen like that envy or just your styles of foreplay out in your relationships?
Yeah, you're married to a rock
That's
star.
an
Talk to us.
interesting question. I don't know. I think, that's difficult. I think I am in a good place. I feel like unhealth and health is kind of a funny word because the irony is fours. Like we're like, oh yeah, we're all a little unhealthy, right? Like, But in my relationship with John, I remember when we first got married, I did have a fear of him not loving me after a while, after he saw different shades of who I was, or after he saw maybe I did get too emotional. But envy, I remember thinking, so when John and I first got married, I was in a transitional phase in my career and I was freelancing and I didn't really feel that great about it. Meanwhile, he had just left a nonprofit, saved all this money to start, working, having a band, like going, like you said, going across country. And it was more so like, man, it's not about him or being envious of him. I love him and I am so glad I'm in his world and we're sharing this life together and we're growing in love together. It was just, you're doing a lot of things. I should probably do a lot of things. Like, why am I not doing a lot of things? Shouldn't I be doing things? More so of that kind of, cyclone of emotions, less about, oh, I want to be a rock star too.
Right. Yeah. Well, so here's the thing, I think for the four is, deep down inside, fours know that emotions are not trustworthy and they don't last.
Yes.
So things like marriage, long-term friendships are extraordinarily scary because you've found emotions to change, to turn, to switch. And so if that's what's happening in me and I'm entering into this relationship with this person, what's going to happen with them and in them, and can I trust them? And just know that, other numbers don't shift as quickly as the four in terms of their feelings and what's happening. And so that's just really, really important to remember for all of us with our primary numbers is other people aren't like us. And that's okay. That is okay. And together we glorify God and I think we bless each other and help each other become more like Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that in the majority of relationships, friendships, and even professional, I go into everything expecting the worst, expecting for them to somehow be like, okay, cool, you finally realized that like I'm not good enough and you're going to move on to something better. Like that's going to happen eventually. I know it's the worst.
What's your 6 score?
6? I'm not sure. I can look.
Yeah. That
I-
sounds a little like you got some, a good healthy amount of 6 in
yes, a lot of my numbers are very...
Andrew will be back for the 6th episode as well. So
But I think that it's become a thing to where I've had to really check my emotions with long-term friendships that I don't think that they are moving on to something else better than me, that they are moving to something different.
Right.
So I think I have a lot of like close guy friends that get a girlfriend and get married and then I don't talk to them for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
That it becomes something that's, I used to take that very, very hard as you found something better than me and I'm not good enough. And that's it. Like, I guess
sorry.
I'm lacking. You can tell me what you want me to be, but I don't think that I can be that for you. And so as I've learned that, I'm like, no, I have people for a season, and the season that I have with them, I'm going to make them feel, and we're going to feel together, and we're going to experience, and hopefully I can help change and cultivate their life into something better. And when it's time for me to let go, they let go. And the time that I had was time that was me, and that was unique to me and unique to us. And now they have a new time that's unique to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Still hurts.
It hurts a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I've experienced that as a pastor of a church where you invest
that's
and
true,
pour
yeah.
into people and they're like, I'm out.
Deuces.
There's a cooler
Oh, that's a
program.
thing?
There's a cooler program at this church.
Yep.
Okay. I'll just take my heart over here and stab it while you leave.
Yep.
I'll just go be sad for
Yeah.
So we've gotten some really great questions in from some people who are learning what it means to be a four. So Savannah wrote in and said, I'm so thankful that I'm now able to recognize my broken four, especially around other people with talent, but I don't know how to redirect my four or how to address my envy of others. I know this sort of self-righteous envy is wrong, but I still keep feeling it, end up hating myself for it, and shrink into my main detached observer 5 when I'm not recognized as unique, further isolating myself from others. Any ideas for practical application on combating this envy that ends up leading to isolation?
Yes. So I'm just going to jump in.
Yeah.
Correct.
So our creative director, Dex, taught me this, which I think is just the greatest principle, is he basically has me ask this question to myself of what is true up until now. And for someone that gets stuck in emotions and feelings and, you know, all those things, that it helps me just center and say, okay, what are the facts outside of what all my feelings are? And I start like I'm driving in the car and I literally start with, I'm in a car, I'm on the road, the lights are on, I'm listening to the radio. Today's Tuesday, I went to work, these things happened, and just lining up all these facts. And it helps me get perspective so that when I am in a situation where I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm not being like appreciated creatively, or I feel like that I'm not like the individual, I have listed out all these facts and say, these are the facts of what actually happened. And none of those are facts of what I am feeling.
Yeah.
And it helps me not negate my feelings, but separate them so that I can say, okay, this happened. This is a feeling that's associated with that. Why am I feeling this feeling? And maybe I can feel this feeling for a little while and then figure out a way to kind of move on from that or dismiss it, whether it's true or not.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's your value is being threatened, or you feel like your identity is on the line. This is kind of weird, but something that I've just had to do is fours are so in their imagination, they're so in their emotions that we're almost totally detached from our bodies at times. So something that I've started to do, it's a hard practice, but hey, I got to work out really, really hard in the morning or just sometime in the day, because at least I can do something super incredibly hard with my body and it'll be harder than whatever I do with my heart maybe that day. And just kind of grounding myself to what is true, and even physically grounding myself to, hey, I have a body, I'm okay. Like I'm not just this, you know, maelstrom of emotion, but I think,
you know, just Christianity in general, we've not done as good of a job as, say, like Hinduism with yoga in connecting the heart, you know, body and soul together. And a lot of times as Christians, we want to act as if we can just do things with our spirit and not connect with our hearts and our bodies. And, you know, I think we need to remind ourselves of the teaching of Jesus that the greatest commandment is to love the Lord with all of your heart, soul, mind, body, and strength. So Christ is saying, you've got to connect everything that you are. That's a mind, that's your body, and that's your spirit. You've got to be in touch with that to be in touch with God. That's how we love God and we connect with him. And so I think that's really, really important what you said. Let me say this, is that, you know, depression, right, oftentimes is I don't matter, nobody cares. And so what I do with that is then I isolate myself, especially if you're a 4-5. And then what happens is I proved what I'm feeling.
Yes.
And that's the danger of depression, is we create a reality that agrees with and confirms how we feel.
Yep.
So I don't matter. People don't care about me. So I'm going to wall people off. I'm going to isolate myself and then see.
No one's there.
And that's, you know, that's why if you struggle with depression, you have to stop trusting yourself in that process, because feelings lie. They just do.
Yes, they do.
You know, depression is a liar. I don't matter. I'm not significant. Nobody cares. It would be better off if I'm dead. No. And so we have to really look at our behavior, because a lot of times we become our own self-fulfilling prophets.
Yep.
Here's how I feel, and then I'm going to create a reality based upon my choices that actually makes that happen. And so you just have to understand that all of us have these behaviors that we've fallen into. They're called adaptive traits or behaviors that we've tried to, right? We're sinners that live in a sinful world. And so we create strategies to survive in this world. Well, the problem is strategies work for a while, and then eventually that's what kills you. And so you just have to know that over time, when you feel insignificant, when you feel depressed, if you isolate yourself and you cut people off, you're going to feel even more depressed. And you now actually don't feel isolated, but you are. Mm-hmm. And that's very, very dangerous. That's a dangerous way, you know, and that's why I tell people, when you don't feel like going to church, that's when you know you're supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's when God's going to do a work. when you don't feel like going to small group, that's when you need to be there because God's going to do something special. When you don't feel like reading your Bible, that's when God has something to say. Because, part of being a Christian is really pressing in and against our feelings and trusting God. I don't think anybody feels like picking up their cross and following Jesus, right? That's intentionally a painful illustration of what it means. And so Jesus is saying, look, and I don't think Jesus felt like dying on the cross that evening. I'm pretty sure he said, hey, God, there's a plan B. So just know that depression, man, creates the reality that you're afraid is happening. So,
Yep.
And that's why it's so important to be in community because you are living in a reality that you can't see out of. Yeah. And having community is like, no, that's not actually the case. Let's pull you out of that.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So then for you guys, before we kind of switch on to more about people who are in relationships with fours, what's been one step that you've been taking to really pursue a new level of health as a four?
Yeah, this is going to sound so anti-4, but it's structure, like fluid structure. I think it's really important to have boundaries with what you're doing because there is a balance of this emotion. Is me? Oh, there is this. I am. Sorry, my phone is going off, everyone. I think it's that structure which will create a really a place and a time for the emotion to come out in a way that is healthy. And so working out and like I just said, like being very diligent in my physical fitness is going to make me feel like I have structure and I have, I'm not just my emotions. I'm not just living in my imagination. I think that's really, really important. I also think it's important to have a time and a place of who you're talking to because I think fours can be really, really overwhelming to others. And we don't want to overwhelm the people that we love. I think you said something about how we can start throwing spears at other people because we're so in our own head with things. So it's very important to, I think, pick a time and a place to really talk about how we're feeling and not let that totally run over someone and really being intentional about that. But I think creating just boundaries and creating structure has been really, really important for me.
Yeah, I think for me, I've really tried to allow myself to push to like the extremities of my 4 in like a healthy way in things that are not necessarily normal per se or that others wouldn't perceive. Actively people are like, that's weird and like different, and I'm like, yes it is, and it's what I want to do, and I'm gonna like do that. Like it's what I want to, like the same reason, I mean it's the reason that I'll dye my hair like whenever I want to. The reason that I've like paint my nails every now and then is this feeling that I can really lean into. This is something that is unique to me. That's literally something that I just like. And I'm going to live in that and not be ashamed of it and not be scared. Cause I think that I lived a lot of kind of living in this, okay, like I'm going to secretly just be like, oh, so creative and be like so individual, but like, I don't want anyone else to see that. I want anyone else to think that I'm just like, over the plate, like regular guy. And over the last year, I've tried to explore more and more what it looks like to just like, let's like let the freak flag fly and just see like what it's like to be a complete individual and be able to live in that.
Right. So the turning moment in Saul's life where he goes dark is when he panics and he's afraid to trust God because everyone else is leaving him.
Yep.
And so in that moment when he chooses really to be God and trust his feelings rather than his faith, which his faith was wait for Samuel. All you got to do is wait. Right. And God, look what God did. God took this nobody that nobody saw and nobody had seen and turned him into this great king and this great leader. And in that moment, he chooses his feelings over God. And man, things just go dark in Saul's life. And the Hebrews don't have language for depression. They don't have language for mental illness. They don't have language for that. So it says God sent a spirit, right? That's the language that they have. And so basically what they're saying is, look, Saul got a little cray-cray, and God knew about it, and God allowed it. And so we did what we could. Like we played the harp. We tried to soothe him. We tried to, he doesn't have a therapist to sit on the couch and talk about all your problems. But he gets darker and darker in that. And ultimately, who does he throw the spear at but the one who played the harp? The very thing that soothed him, his envy and jealousy, he had to kill that guy. The one thing that comforted him. And it was just so sad. And really one of the things that sets David apart from Saul is David does far worse than Saul. But David repented. David repented. Saul continued to follow the path of his emotions and his feelings. And he followed his heart, right? All the way to where ultimately, he basically takes his own life.
Yeah, and something else I've been doing healthy just as like a thing is going to therapy, like literally checking with the doctor and being like, I'm all over the place. I need help to process through this, like getting into it. And I think there's just a stigma around like, I'm in therapy or like I'm in counseling. Like it's a great thing, especially for us that are just trapped in our feelings, to have like, cool, your job sitting across from me is to help me process through my feelings. Here's money. Let's do that. And it's been amazing.
Yeah. So, people, they always ask me, they're like, well, how do you not get prideful with the extraordinary success of Sandals Church? Well, it's because I'm a 3-wing 4. I've never been as successful as I thought I would, and then I feel really bad about myself because I'm a 4. So that's where it is. And so I have to go and work through, and just the last probably 5 years of my life really saying, God has done some amazing things, and this is really cool. And I am an individual, and I have been creative, and I have been somewhat successful in having to speak truth into my feelings because my feelings have not been honest to me, and I have lied to myself. And then I have, here's how my 3-4 works together. I lie to myself, and then I feel bad about the lie. Yep. It's so dumb. And so that's why the Enneagram has been so helpful to me to go, I am not speaking truth right now to myself, and I'm feeling crappy about this lie that I'm telling myself. And that's where counseling has helped me. And, I've been to, I don't know how many counseling sessions over, but praise God, man, I haven't had an affair. I haven't screwed up. I haven't done a lot of things that pastors do that keep them from experiencing the blessings of God. I just said, hey, let's go talk about this. Let's actually live the vision of being real. And so I would much rather, if you're a 4, that you go talk about your feelings rather than acting on them, because you can really screw up your life if you're just this, unhealthy 4 that's just flying by the seat of your pants based upon how you feel.
Oof,
that's a very, very dangerous thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think it's Jeremiah 17:3. Stephanie will look it up. But the heart is incredibly wicked. Who knows the depths of its evil? That's Jeremiah, who, by the way, was probably a 4. He was my second candidate for a 4. He's known as the weeping prophet.
Probably 4.
Yeah. So, but very
Probably a 4-wing 5 though.
Yeah.
I feel like 4s aren't that much of a bummer. Like, we've got some fun. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
What's your 7 score though?
Oh, real high. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's her 7 talking.
Real high.
Which again, why it's so important that you don't go take a free test online, but you actually look at our test, because our test shows what I just called out is you got a lot of 7. So if you don't have a lot of 7, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm not like her. What's wrong with me? So, it's because she has got a lot of 7, and she's cray-cray. When we have a party, I know where Elena will be on the dance floor, right next to you.
I'm right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think somebody described to me really, really well of this idea that it's like you're a canvas, and the Enneagram just helps you understand, and especially the way that we do it, like what paint is on your canvas. Like there's a lot of different colors. There's a lot of different amounts of each color. And it just makes this like beautiful portrait of who you are. And
we're the only ones that I know of that does it that way.
Yeah. Well, I've loved it because I've loved having conversations with people who are like, I don't understand why I'm this type. Like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, well, look at how these other types are flavoring that. You're not going to look like this person because your 4 is not going to look like his 4 because they've got, well, actually yours kind of are because you both have the 4 with the 7.
You're high 7 too.
We're
right?
very different, Stephanie. Okay.
You are very different. We're
very
unique
in our own way.
You're very special, and I'm very thankful for you. But yeah, it's been interesting to talk with people like, I know you don't think this is your type, but it's because it's flavored by this.
Yeah.
Or your mom's that type too, but it's because you guys are completely different in these other types.
Or the old coffee analogy, like you got your coffee, but then you got a
do you have sugar? Do you have creamer in it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Andrew got lots of sugar.
Oh boy, do I.
I just wanted to say one more thing about what you're doing to, I think the question was embracing the healthy side.
Pursue
or something
health.
like that. Pursue health. Is gratitude is just a really important thing. And starting the day with being gracious for all that God has given you and actually saying the things out loud, speaking truth, like today's Tuesday, but also, I have friendships, I have community, I have just speaking truth into your life in the morning is really important, and all throughout the day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason for gratitude is it provides balance.
Yes.
And so what the 4 is pushing for in life is balance. So, they have a 4 will have the extreme highs and the extreme lows. And what you want to do is not try to eliminate that, but try to find balance in your highs and lows. And that's that's what you're looking for is, okay, I'm trying to find balance to these feelings that are crazy high and crazy low. And how do I try to do that? And so what Elena's done is she's found exercise has provided a healthy way for her to check in with herself physically so that she can be better strengthened to manage herself emotionally. And again, that's why it's so important. Hinduism does such a better job than our Western Christianity of checking in with the body. Many Christians don't care at all about exercise or diet or looking at their physical makeup at all. And let me tell you something, how you feel physically affects how you feel emotionally. It just does. The food we eat, how we sleep, whether we're working out, taking care of ourselves, all of those things play into how we feel.
Yeah, and I think something for me has been, I struggle a lot with identity, and like we had talked about, of like, just tell me who to be, like, who do you need me to be, of going to the Bible, because it's just an easy solution of like, here's a list of all the things that like you just are, like God says that you are. You don't have to search for like, who do you want me to be? Like,
right.
I can't sort through these feelings of like who I am. It's like, here's what you are. Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. Like I can say those truths into these feelings that are lying to me.
Yeah. What's your 2 score? You don't know.
It was in the mid zones.
Okay. Yeah. You have some
we
too.
both have high 2s.
I remember you posted something with a super high unhealthy. You're like, hold on, it was
10 healthy and a 99 unhealthy too.
Yeah, so your 99 unhealthy 2 is part of your identity crisis. That's not coming from your 4. So the unhealthy 2 is, who am I? I am what I do. So tell me what to do. And so the 2 becomes codependent. And so I completely lose sight of myself by serving you and taking care of you and doing what you need me to do, because I don't know who I am. And so that's the 2. See, again, that's why I haven't looked at his score, but as soon as he says that, I'm going, okay, that's not the 4. That's something else that's flavoring his 4.
My 2 is a 78.
Yeah, there you go. So which is really high. Yeah. But you said it was 99 unhealthy. Let me see your, Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think that desire for security, you're desiring to have relationships and have people around you, and you're like, well, if they can't handle my feelings, at least I can do things for them.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
Beautiful bouquet of a human being you are.
Oh, bouquet. I like that.
Pastor Matt's nice. Just like mouth open looking at your results.
I'm a lot.
Yeah, this is the other version of him staring into people's souls, is now staring into your numbers.
Yeah.
So we actually got a really interesting question from Leah who is a 4 who's in a relationship with a 5. And she says, how can I healthily grow in a dating relationship with someone who seems to be the antithesis of who I am? I can easily feel all the feelings all the time, but how can I best have a balanced relationship with a 5 who seems to have little to no feelings, all the while making sure I'm not overwhelming them with my feelings?
Yeah, so opposites attract. So you're going to see this a lot of times. So a super strong 8 will be drawn to a 9. Like, right, this peaceful person, this loving person. And, the 8 is stirring up conflict everywhere they go, and then it creates conflict. Same with the 4 and the 5 is the 4 helps the 5 feel. And so they're drawn to that, and they love that, and they're experiencing feelings that they've never had before. And the 4 loves the chase of bringing that out and seeing things that they've never seen before, right? And so that's like, so the romantic, the 4, they're drawn to that, and oh my gosh, this is our love story, and no one's ever felt this deep, and right, and so then you have sexual attraction, which is really, really strong. But once that kind of subsides, and then it's just the 2 of you there, then you really have this huge gap, and it's the largest gap on the Enneagram, and it's a lifelong struggle between the 4 and the 5 to connect. And so the 5 has to make the choice to feel and to examine feelings and to not run into their cave. So we have the 5s next week, and they run into a cave, and they can hide for months. And so what that does to the 4 is it isolates them, and they just feel. But it's not just a feeling, it's actually happening. They feel separate, they feel isolated, and they feel alone. And that's overwhelming. And for some of that, the 5 is just initially drawn to the passion of the 4, the intense feelings of the 4, but then those things become overwhelming, they become frightening. And what the 5 wants to do is observe, which is the antithesis of feeling, right? I'm just going to watch. And so if you're a 5 married to a 4, right, think about sexual intimacy. That's a real challenge, because the 5, especially if they're a male, they're still going to want to have sex. But the 4 is not, because there's not a connection, there's not the romance, there's not the emotional makeup there. And so then the 5 feels rejected, and they go into their cave even more. And then before you know it, you've got a very, very lonely marriage that's in real trouble. and so you've got to learn to talk about that, the 5, the core sin of greed, and we'll get in that next week, has to be intentional about sharing emotion, sharing money, sharing thoughts, sharing feelings, right? The 5 withholds everything because everything's so precious. And I have this one feeling, so I can't share it. So no, and it's safe. And so that's what I would say is really dive in. And again, part of intimacy is learning to share your story. And a lot of people minimize that as gobbledygook or whatever, but you need to learn the story. How were you raised? What happened in your life? What's going on? And so, like for my wife and I, a lot of our battles were a lot of the attributes that she wanted in me, I didn't see in my dad. My dad, and my dad's a great guy, but he just is not, his 2 scores got to be like negative. He just doesn't naturally help or think about things. And my wife, like was a big part, but I wasn't raised to see that. I didn't, I just didn't see that. And so, just understanding that, okay, how you were raised has affected who you are. And so that's not all 3s are the same, not all 4s are the same. You grew up in different households and different lifestyles. You guys have different genders. And contrary to popular opinion, gender matters. That makes things very, very different. And then we've talked about on the show before, same-sex attraction. That's an additional like, hey, that's fun. Let's talk about that. All of those things go into that. And so you just have to say, okay, let's talk about what was life like as early on as you can remember.
Yeah.
How did you feel? What was that like? What happened when you were a 5 and you shared? Right? Because so a 5's going to share one
Literal
time.
therapy questions last week.
like a 5's going to share one time. What if that goes bad? I'm not doing that again. Like where the 4 is like, well, that went bad, but we'll try again. The 5 is scared to death to say, here's who I am. Whereas the 4 is like, man, I just eat that up, right? Talk to me about how you feel and who you are and how you matter. And so just really, really share your child experience and then how you think that shaped you. A great thing to do as a couple is just to map out your life and just literally, give the 5 like a day to go and kind of map out, their day. And if they're not as artistic or whatever, cut pictures out, of magazines and say, here's my life and here's what it looked like and here's how I think that affected me, so that you can better love that 5 and then call it out. Like just like the 4 needs to be called out. Hey, you're being driven by emotion. The 5 is you're running into the cave.
Yeah.
And, you can only do that so often where people are like, I'm out. So, that's a great question. And just know that opposites do attract. And just remember that initial thing, when I feel super negative about Tammy, what I do, practice gratitude. I remind myself of the things I love about her. What are the things that drew me to her? How is she amazing? How do I care about that? And we need to all do that because it's easy to be negative. It takes work. It takes intentionality to be positive and to remind yourself, okay, here's the amazing things about this person. And unfortunately, oftentimes in our society, the only times people are grateful and express gratitude is at funerals. And it's too late.
The irony. Yeah.
It's too late. That's why we do words of affirmation in our house at birthday parties. We say, here's the things that I love about you and I appreciate about you. Because we don't want to say that at your funeral. We want to say that at your birthday while you're still alive.
Yeah.
Can I go to those parties?
Yeah.
We just come and sit here though.
Talk about me.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I just moved in with a 5 a couple months ago, and it's been super interesting for me and him to understand each other. I'm living with a married couple, and he's just super high 5, and I think that I've had to learn that he still feels feelings, not as deeply as I do, because I think I come in, I'm like, feel these deep feelings, and then it becomes overwhelming, and I've had to learn, okay, I'm gonna let you lead in like whatever we are feeling, and maybe the feeling is like peace right now, and like that's a feeling too. It's not something that I'm like, oh yeah, peace is like this feeling, but it's like, okay, we're gonna have this together. We're gonna have this light feeling, just like a diet feeling, and that's all right.
Yeah,
I love that.
And let's talk about this. I think it's easier in our society to be a female and be a 4 than it is to be a man and be a 4. Just like in our society, I feel like it's easier to be a male and to be a 5 than it is to be a female and to be a 5, because there's social expectations and there's cultural norms. So if you're a man and you're a 4, I think you're going to be shoved into a box of control how you feel, shut that up, keep it quiet. Whereas if you're a woman and you're a 5, it's like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you crying? Why aren't you emoting? Why aren't you?
Do you not like me?
Yeah. So we need to be aware of that, and you need to be aware of that. Don't shove any of the numbers into the box, but especially the 4. And so if you have a young man that you're raising, your son that's a 4, you got to embrace that.
Yeah, I have a great story. When I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a poet, and so I wrote all this poetry. I loved Edgar Allan Poe because they just like lived in the like dark feeling, melancholy. And I remember I wrote this poem that was just like really dark and like Edgar Allan Poe-esque. And I got called to the principal's office with my parents, and they were like, "We're concerned about Andrew and Dark." And I remember sitting in the car. My mom comes back into the car, and I was like, "Am I in trouble?" And she literally turns around and she goes, "No, they just don't understand you. You keep being you and writing what you want." And then drove away. And I was like, "Oh,
mom.
mother."
Go, Mom.
Which was just great. Yeah.
Yay, Andrew's mom.
I love
Thanks,
that.
Mom.
Happy early Mother's Day.
Yeah. So, speaking of parenting fours, Janae wrote in and said, after hearing the sermon on the four, I discovered both of my kids are fours. How do I keep a healthy balance between them? Their sibling rivalry isn't about toys or sharing, but more about who has the better idea.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I'm going to steal my wife's word. It's about cultivating just how amazing each idea is as an individual, and literally saying this household is not about competition, it's about complementing.
Yes.
So how do we complement each other and celebrate the uniqueness of each idea? So I'm guessing maybe they're 4-wing 3s because that's where the competitive nature is coming from and driving that. But I think siblings aren't. I mean, there's a reason it's called sibling rivalry. There's a reason Cain killed Abel. It's difficult, and what you learn in raising children is sin is real, and it manifests itself in very, very ugly ways in most kids. I mean, some kids mask it well; they're just better behaved. But most kids, it comes out pretty aggressively and pretty negatively early on. And so, I just would say learn to celebrate and compliment each, and never compare. So if you want to kill your fours, don't compare them, but celebrate them as individuals. And again, see that in them as, oh my gosh, what I love about both of you is how distinct you are. I mean, that's the word that I would say is the thing that makes me the most proud of you is how, man, God with two parents, I'm assuming they have the same mom, same dads, but that's not always the case in our culture. It's just amazing that out of us, God would bring such different individuals, because even if they're fours, they're not the same. And so, but they might do great things together. Extraordinary creative, I think about just some of the brothers that are in Hollywood that have done fantastic things. I'm guessing they're fours, and they've produced the Coen. I was saying the Coen brothers. They've done amazing, amazing things. And so, wow, that's incredible. You think about the Wright brothers, individuals who just saw outside of the box, and I just was so amazed. Their commitment to each other and understanding their unique roles in the design of the first aircraft, and they just worked really, really well together, and made a decision, I think, as teenagers, to prolong marriage. I mean, to put off marriage and to work together. And we're all in airplanes today because of those two individuals. So, but they were definitely individualists. They were not like everybody else. They existed in a time where nobody felt like people would ever fly, but they felt differently, and they pursued that, and they pressed into that. And you want to talk about individualists. I mean, America, truly has produced some amazing, amazing 4-wing 3s, right? I'm going to be successful, but I'm going to be me. You think about Ford cars, just incredible. And, he probably was a 4-wing 5 because he created the system, the assembly line. I mean, you got to be a 5 to have that in your head. Because he observed a better way.
For sure.
But he has that creative ingenuity to think outside of the box, and to, and think about romanticism, not just in the terms of a love relationship, but the romantic idea of what could be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
A mystery and excitement of what could happen.
We were talking about that before, of the distinction between seeing something as it should be, and then as it could be.
Yeah.
There's always this possibility of like, well, it should be this. No, you don't understand. Like, it could be a million other things.
Right.
Yeah, like ones can walk in a room and see all the things that are wrong. Can you fix this? I think that fours can walk in a room and see all the things that are like lacking, like
bursting with potential.
Where's the color? Where is this? Oh, I could do this.
What if this wasn't a room anymore? What if it was a
what if we
cafe?
weren't in a room? What if we were in the sky? Yeah. Exactly. We're kind of going a little off topic, but I don't have kids yet. But I think just thinking of childhood and thinking of being very emotional and hearing my parents say, "Oh, you're being so dramatic," or like I would say, this is going to be weird coming from someone who has kids, but maybe to not manage and try to manage so much of the emotion, or also in the same flip of the coin, not to overindulge into their emotions, because I think that can also be really dangerous for kids.
Yeah, just a great book for everybody, 12 Principles for Life by Peterson.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson, chapter 5, I believe, is on parenting. One of the most fantastic books. maybe ever written by a psychologist, not a Christian, but on how to raise your kids. And his general principle for parenting is don't let your kids do things that make you not like them. And so, but allow them to be them. But right, what did you say? Don't be so dramatic. So encourage your kid to be dramatic, but not in such a way that maybe they would lose friendships or lose, because what he says is you love your children, the world will not. So you have to, right? So if they don't love you and they don't like you, you're in trouble. And so that's that's his kind of, man, I think he just balances so well raising individuals and then also raising them with the idea that they're going to go into a culture that's real, whether we like it or not. It's a real thing. And a lot of kids, especially the individualists, preparing them for a whole other world of individualists and people that think that they're the only one like them, and embracing that because it can be crushing, especially for a 4 kid that hasn't experienced other creatives, other individuals, and yeah.
I think that there's this idea that I love that like at this point, like almost everything has been said, but it hasn't been said by you. And so even with like people
that was
that are
so good.
Yeah. Here, let me just.
thanks.
Yeah.
It's Stephen Sondheim. It's from a musical, but it's not me. But I like that principle, and I think that it makes it so that like even with these brothers, like you give them the same thing and they tell it in different ways, and each of them are unique and have equal merit because no one has ever said it like them before. And look at things like. For me, from a creative perspective, when we do like Easter or something, right? It's a story that we've told for thousands of years. Every single year, we do and tell it in a different way. And not only us, thousands of churches, across the world are telling the same story. It's the same thing that's been said for thousands of years. But because they're unique people saying it, it becomes a unique experience, and people get to experience that story in a different way.
Amen. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was good.
I love that. One last quick question on parenting kids, because we had another question of they think they're 8-year-olds, some might be 4. What's the best age for you to maybe have your kids take the Enneagram and start learning that? Or how young's too young?
Well, part of the problem is the vocabulary of the questions. You're going to have to tell your kid what each word means and what each question means, and so that's part of the challenge. So I think when they can read the questions and they have vocabulary. But I think it's okay to guess as a parent and just give yourself permission to be wrong and let your kid change and grow. And, our son just took the test and he's 15. And what the test results, I think, showed his mom and I is how influenced he is by his sisters. So, right, because they're the 2 dominant forces in his life. And we just said, hey, you've scored this, now let's see how that changes. And, we were just talking about your guy's boss who just recently retook it and changed back to what I initially thought he was. But the test came out one way. And so as you, I think, understand yourself better, you give yourself permission to freely answer the questions. That's so important. There's been so many times on staff where a staff member's taking the question and they're like, I came out of this. And I'm like, there's no way. That's just not you. But they're not at a place where they're ready to be awake enough to say, okay, this is who I really am. And a lot of people are just terrified of being honest with themselves. I used to think people that came on staff at Sandals, bought fully into the vision of being real. I have been greatly disappointed many, many times because it's a scary vision. And I can't tell you how hard it was for me to come to the place where I said, okay, deceit is my core sin, and this is how it manifests itself in my life. And I've got to be so aware of that. That was really, really hard for me. Deceit and envy aren't 2 things that I wanted to be honest about. So, yeah. So that's I would just say, really, really focus on yourself as an adult and tiptoe into the Enneagram. Be very, very careful. Just know that it gets cultic and weird on the internet, and people get it just does. People get bizarre with it. And again, the Enneagram is not our source of truth. The Word of God is. Jesus Christ is our source. The Enneagram is just a tool to help us be truthful with ourselves. So just use it as that. And like I said, tiptoe lightly and slowly into that. And some of you guys are looking at your chart. You have no idea what that means. And that's okay. Tammy and I've been studying this for 15 years. Tammy and I have done multiple levels of training. My wife's a much better reader of the graph than I am. It's just her gift. and just some people are just really, really, really good at noticing some things. So.
And I think it gives you a good nudge toward investigation.
Yeah.
That it's kind of like, okay, maybe these are things that I should look at, you know, and like, okay, maybe not this one or maybe not that, but like, this is revealing some things about me.
Yeah.
And for me, any like one thing that helps me dismiss some emotion, I'm like, cool, give me more of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give me more thoughts because my feelings are not thoughts. Yeah.
Ooh,
because
I love that.
Because fours are such a mystery to others, but they're a mystery to themselves. And all the Enneagram is a tool. It's a map. It's a road map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a guide.
Well, it's so great because it shows you the positive side. So you can embrace like, because I'm a 9, but I would never want to say that I'm lazy. But embracing like, oh, okay, I could see how I'm a peacemaker. I see how that. And then I start to see like, oh, this is what laziness looks like for me. It's not in tasks, it's in relationships, it's in avoiding other things. And so I love how it shows the positive side. So you can embrace that, pursue that, and realize like, okay, if this is true about me, these good things are true about me, these negative things probably are too, and I need to figure out how they play out in my life.
Yep.
So I love
Yeah.
that.
It's all, the ugly side is all ugly for every number. And the beautiful side's all beautiful for every number. And so you just have to embrace that. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So if you would like to, we still have that test available. It moved at SC/self-discovery, and we'll have that in the show notes. Andrew and Lilana, thank you so much for
Yeah, you
joining
guys were
us
great.
Thanks
and
for having
sharing
us.
all of
We
your
loved
feelings
it.
with us. It was very fun.
We felt
So-
together.
there's a 2-part to this, right? I feel like we have feelings to talk
So we're
about.
gonna do your interpretive dance after this.
Yep.
So we'll tack that on the end.
Yeah, we're going to put that on the video.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So, and we
We've
do
been
have
practicing.
our original song for the 4 with Matt Ritchie right after this episode. So make sure to stick around for that. It is going to be wonderful. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Longing for a land in love long lost, lest I learn to love a land long gone. Can't move forward and I can't move on from a place that's always dusk and never dawn. If the sun only sets, if the night's all I get, will it last? Will you stay here tonight? Gone today? Maybe this is where mercy meets me. Maybe this is where grace lifts my head. Waking to unleash what's in my bones, to reveal a world that's yet unknown. See the hidden light, the shadows long. Hear the voiceless words, a soundless song. Shattered life, scattered soul, missing piece. All I know, will it find all I lack? If I need all I have, maybe this is where mercy meets me. Maybe this is where grace lives my head. Maybe this is where mercy meets me. this is where mercy meets me. And maybe this is where grace lifts my head.